Joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show once again, and thankfully, pleased to say, every single Monday of the National Football League season, this is a regular. We have a Rich Eisen Show regular. It's been greenlit.
I love
How
it.
about that?
Oh, well
the
done.
host
Well
of the
done.
Greenlight podcast, the two-time Super Bowl champion, friend of the program on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line is Chris Long. How you doing, Chris?
Happy to be a friend of the program, man. Psyched.
Me too, very much so. I'll start this conversation as I did last week. What do you take away as the headline of week number 3, Chris Long?
Oh man, that Buffalo Miami game was like a playoff game. Didn't it feel? I mean, it felt like incredibly intense, and it felt like, you know, the narratives that we're going to form based off of this game are going to be big. You got to tip your cap to Miami and the defense, man. You know, it was Tua's turn last week to win the game, that offense. But that offense this week only had to score really about 14 points. I mean, they got a short field on the Holland turnover there, backed up. The Bills, you know, scrambling to protect Josh Allen as the play clock runs on because it's so damn loud there. And they spot them field position, and it was mostly about that defense, you know, like getting something out of a guy like Melvin Ingram, you know, a bunch of pressures. And, yeah, the Bills were wounded. Yeah, the secondary, although they played very well considering the fact, like, nobody had experience in that back end. The Bills had their chances to win this game. I mean, the Bills definitely had a chance to win this game. You look at the botch snap before the half where they have to fake spike it. That's 3 points there. You know, settle for a field goal in the low red. They miss a field goal. They drop a pick six. So the Bills are going to look back at this game the second time they play the Dolphins, and I think they're going to feel good about, you know, going down there, tough atmosphere, tough defense, tough team, and with everybody wounded, actually saying, hey, we had our chances. And so I'm really excited to look forward to the second meeting. I'm already circling this thing up in Buffalo, and I think this is the headline is like these two teams are going to really have a barn burner the next time they get together, and they're both contenders.
Yeah, I'm sure CBS is already protecting that game for Week 15 from an NBC Flex possibility. That is as good as it's going to get, one would think, based on what we've already seen over the first 3 weeks. And that's how I'm going to kind of flip the script on you a little bit, because this was my take at the top of the program, is that if I'm the Bills, I'm thinking this. Okay, so we're without our top defensive backs, plural, okay? And we're going into this game against Waddle and Hill and Tua after they just put it on the Ravens like they did. And, man, we went to the last drop in 100-degree weather. We're dropping like flies on a short week after a Monday night opener at home. And that's the only way we can get beaten this year, is that way, in division, on the road, in that circumstance. And you know, the Bills aren't going to go undefeated. I don't think anybody is. And I take away a lot of positives for the Bills coming out of this game.
The Giants are still undefeated, Rich.
That's true. So the Eagles are as well, we're currently talking about.
The NFC East is a juggernaut division. But no, I'm with you. I mean, like I want to give the Dolphins their flowers, man. Like, this is a contending team. Like, I had them in the playoffs. I don't know that they're like the best team in the AFC. Like, some people are getting ready to jump out of the gym for these two performances, but they're a good football team. But if you're the Bills, who are the Super Bowl favorites, when they're at full strength, they are the Super Bowl favorites. They're looking back at this game. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to know that they could have won this football game in a lot of different ways, and they didn't. But they hung tough with a good team in 120-degree weather down there in a playoff-type atmosphere. So a lot of fun. Like a new team has kind of arrived, it feels like. At least they're at the dance. And Miami's got a short week at Cincy Thursday night. So that's going to be really, really interesting because, you know, a game like that in Miami with that weather, that takes it out of you. I don't care if that's your home stadium. 120 degrees on the field is 120 degrees on the field. You get Cincy Thursday night, you're going to blitz Joe Burrow, you're going to heat him up. The Jets are probably a little the Bengals are probably a little fresher, no offense for having played the Jets. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a big barometer. Like, after these two big wins, can they come to play and kind of answer the bell again on Thursday night? That'll be fun.
Well, what did you make of Tua's back injury and how he came back from
the back
it?
of the head?
It's what it looked like to me, and
I'm not calling Tua a liar, man. No, but, I mean, honestly, it feels like you went in the locker room and they were like, your back hurt this week, right? And he's like, yeah, back hurt. But that was when Bridgewater came to the game and that 3-and-out, you just felt like, okay, the Bills finally get a break. But Tua is a tough dude. We knew that about him. I mean, if it was the head, that's concerning. But if it's the back, more power to him for playing through it. That game had a little of everything, man.
But have you ever seen a colleague of yours react to a back injury the way that Tua reacted to his on the field?
I reacted to a back injury like that last week. Got out of bed.
Chris Long, everybody.
My feet, and so I want to throw Tua a bone here. Maybe he's just got he's got what I have.
Chris Long, the host of the Green Light podcast right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So the Sunday night game, what did you make of that? What's your takeaway from the Broncos riding and the manner in which they did over the Niners?
My producer, Cowboy Reed's a Broncos fan, and I asked him, in the morning, is it let's ride or let's hide? Because, it feels like a little more let's hide even after a win. I don't feel like you feel better as a Broncos fan because you're waiting for this breakout game. You're thinking, okay, they've moved the ball between the 20s, right? They've been bad in the red zone. The coach is making questionable decisions, but they'll get it going. Russ, not on target. Made a couple nice throws late to win them that ball game. But I think the lead for me is, and I have the Niners in the Super Bowl. I had them in the Super Bowl to start the season out of the NFC. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. Some of the biggest question marks they actually have worked towards answering, like the interior of their offensive line, that sort of thing. But Jimmy G, no training camp. Jimmy G, a spot start against the Seahawks. This is a road game. It's a tough defense. Chubb, Gregory, it's a totally different feel for him. So I'm not going to panic yet about the Niners offense because of Jimmy G. What I am going to panic about with the Niners offense is Trent Williams going down. That to me was the most significant thing that happened in that game. That's the type of thing that can affect a contending team and make them not so. You saw what happened to that offense the minute he left the field. And I was talking to my brother Kyle on Greenlight earlier about this. And, he was pointing out just all the ways that Trent Williams changes a football game for an offense. In the run game, the things you're able to do, trapping, the opposite defensive end, get him out in space. He's pulling. Obviously, you don't have to help him in protection. So really tough blow for them to lose Trent Williams, but an awful game to watch, man. An awful game to watch. I joked that, I was chasing a little bit yesterday, and I actually bet the Niners in the over. I want to whisper that. But, it's one of those things I wish I had an Eric Bieniemy to get me off the field at halftime and say, we're good. Let's go to the locker room. That was that game for me last night, and it was awful to watch.
Chris Long, Greenlight podcast host here on the Rich Eisen Show on a Monday, as he has kindly agreed to do for the rest of this season. So the Eagles, man, they are being bandied about as the most complete team in football through the first 3 weeks. Would you agree with that assessment, Chris Long?
I still think the Bills are the best team in football. We can argue about who's the most complete and all that, but the Eagles, man, the missing piece for them was, you upgrade linebacker, your corners are playing lights out. Darius Slay having a defensive player of the year type year if he plays like he played last week against Justin Jefferson. But they just were dominant up front. These guys, I think they had 4 or 5 sacks in the first quarter. And this is a group that, hadn't been getting home so much relative to the hype and the expectation. You got Fletcher Cox, you have Brandon Graham who had 2.5, you have Josh Sweat, who's, a first round pick in my mind. He's a top 5 pick, but he had the knee injury, so he slid a little bit. You've got Hassan Reddick, who finally got on the board yesterday, a bunch of young talent. Can't forget Hargrave. So they're a really good group up front, but they hadn't gotten home. And when you play Carson Wentz, sometimes that's the cure. Because he's going to hold on to the football. And I think for the Eagles D-line, you saw Carson hugging up people before the game, and there's no love, there's no bad blood. But I certainly remember being on the sideline and thinking, I'd love to rush Carson Wentz. He does hold on to the ball. So if you're an Eagle, it's kind of like a fantasy comes true. You watch Carson take sacks in at the link, and now you get to rush him, and they make the most of it. And that game was over pretty quick. So the Eagles are complete. I love the tight end play they get from Dallas Goedert. They don't get enough credit. He doesn't get enough credit. A.J. Brown's a big deal. But Jalen Hurts, man, just doing what he's asked to do and being consistent in doing it. I mean, sure, there were guys opening against Minnesota, but he was putting that ball on target. So I think they got to be considered, especially after the Trent Williams injury, probably the clubhouse leader in the NFC when it comes to like a chance to get to the big game.
So we're now going to enter the you can only choose one portion of the sports talk radio conversation we're having right now, Chris Long.
I love that.
Okay, you can only choose one. The Battle of the Bays as to who emerged yesterday. I know it came down to it. It was really tight. Green Bay or Tampa Bay, which one? You can only choose one to go the distance. And I know you just mentioned the Niners, and there's still the Rams, and I know the Eagles, but you can only choose one of those two. Which one do you choose after 3 weeks, Chris Long?
I got the this isn't reactive. If Tom Brady hit that 2-point conversion and they go in and win in overtime, I'd still say the Packers. I don't believe in the Bucs offense. I mean, like I respect the greatness of Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. But, it's a thin line. Been saying this all offseason. You need to make some acquisitions, Julio Jones, Rudolph, Gage. But, like you're missing Gronk. Godwin's coming off an ACL. Julio Jones has already missed time. It kind of is going how I figured. The line is too thin between, damn, this team might have a lot of weapons and like, I don't know who they're throwing the ball to. At the end of that ball game, they really had to work for it to get in the end zone. And I just remember sitting there and thinking a lot of the same way I was thinking about the Chiefs in the red zone yesterday at times. This used to be easier for them. It feels like more of a struggle. And I think Green Bay figures it out. I mean, this isn't reactive. I've been saying this for 3 weeks. Relax, man. Like, they lose to a division rival who beats them with regularity in the Vikings. Lazard is out. They look kind of hapless. They struggle through the Bears a little bit. But it takes time. And Romeo Doubs, who I had on my damn bench in fantasy after I bragged about stealing him in the 9th or whatever it was, which is not a steal at all, people tell me, had a big game last night. And Lazard looked good. And even if they don't get big numbers on the ground, they can run the football. And just committing to that. And the defense, man, Rashawn Gary coming along. I know you love that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the Packers. I'm not saying they're the best team in the NFC, but they're not going to go away.
Okay, so you can only choose one in the AFC South. The Colts, who just shocked the Chiefs, or the Jaguars, who just put it on the Chargers after shutting out the Colts. They are now 2-1. You can only choose one.
Can I bite the cheese here? I'm going to bite the cheese. I'm going to go with the Jags, man. And part of that is it's a homer pick for me. It's not a pick I made a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why preseason predictions suck, Rich, because nobody knows anything. So, who cares if you get something right or get something wrong? Who knew that the Jaguars were going to look this good? Who really knew? I knew that they got some nice edge rushers. Josh Allen had a really nice day yesterday. But they really took it to the Chargers. And Chargers had some drops early where they could have stayed in that football game. But the Jags, if you go back and watch their Indy game last week, and I got to really dig into this Chargers game, they're just so fun to watch offensively. We made fun of the Christian Kirk signing, right? He's paid dividends. He's getting touchdowns out of the backfield. A bunch of motion. Doug's doing a great job of getting people open, but also occupying eyes. I think they were top 5 in the league in motion through the first 2 weeks. It probably hasn't changed after the Chargers. He's constantly gaming and getting advantages. Evan Ingram's getting involved, who Giants fans will remember. That was a little frustrating at times. But they look fun, and Trevor Lawrence looks a little more settled in. That was a big boy win for them. Yeah, I would go Jags.
Okay, and I guess the emotional pick is because it's Doug Pederson there, because I had a conversation just on this show in the segment before, Chris, talking about how, look, we all know that Doug Pederson is going to add something to the mix, but part of the benefit for him in Jacksonville is he's not Urban Meyer. And I pointed out how last year the game that the Jaguars had in SoFi. That's the one where James Robinson got benched for fumbling, and Trevor Lawrence went up to Urban Meyer saying, "Where is he?" And he got put back in the game, and then Urban denied benching him to the media, and that was when the players reportedly went up to the Rams after the game and said, "Please save us, get us out of here." And now they return to the same stadium and just spank the Chargers with Robinson scoring from midfield, running it in.
On fourth and one, which
right.
is where you get a lot of great, that was the nail in the coffin too. But, you get a lot of big explosive runs on 4th and 1. Everybody's in the box and, you make one guy miss and you're out the gate. But I just love Doug's aggressiveness. And also, yesterday early, he was aggressive on 4th and medium, and then he laid up as you saw the kind of tempo of that football game. He's a great head coach. I think when you look at Trevor Lawrence, getting the ball out really fast yesterday against the rush with Joey Bosa was down early. That was a big deal. But, if you get the ball out quick, Doug's probably licking his chops because the last guy he had to deal with was Carson. We just talked about how long he's holding on to the football. Like if Doug can have an efficient quarterback that gets the ball where he needs to get it, he's decisive. You can work around the perceived protection problems. But, yeah, the reason the Colts, for me, that's a good win yesterday. They got a really good defense. Gus Bradley called a good game. But the Chiefs had a bunch of chances to win that football game, So I'm not going to take too much from that game. I know they missed the rookie Pierce, the wideout. But I don't think I'm believing in the Colts just yet.
Well, and I guess then the last thing for you, that Chiefs-Colts game did turn significantly on a personal, and I guess an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Chris Jones, and it looked like he said something to Matt Ryan after he sacked Ryan, and the Chiefs were going to get off the field, and then didn't, and then they lost. What do you think happened there? What's your best guess on somebody who's been in those frays before?
Man, it had to be bad. Maybe he said 28-3 or something, and the ref was like, "That is just too. That is just too much." And, Matty Ice, guy. I contend that he didn't lose that Super Bowl. No one should hold that Super Bowl over his head or against him, but maybe Chris Jones did or something. Because I'm like, what the hell could you say? He was so calm with whatever he said. It must have been. There's two things I really want to know. Like, what did Lattimore say to Brady last week? Right, we talked about that.
Yes.
And then is our fly on the wall is like, what did Chris Jones say to Matt Ryan? But Chiefs had chances. They dropped the ball on 3rd and 7 in the end zone. The special teams, I count 14 points with the muff that they gave up on special teams. They had to run a fake field goal because they had no faith in their kicker. They get Bucker back. They figure some things out offensively. I'm not panicking about the Chiefs because they play good defense. But the Colts, man, I'm not going to take too much from that win.
So who's on Green Light Pod this week? What do you got set up?
We got a guest on Wednesday that if this guest comes through, he's one of the best. Rich, do you give away the guest a day or two before? Do you ever worry that people are going to flake?
Well, it depends. Do you know this person? I
know the person.
Okay.
But, he's playing football right now. He's one of the best football players in the history of the game.
Okay.
Defensive. He's an edge guy.
Okay.
And he's probably going to come on Wednesday. So I just,
did he win or lose this week? Did he win or lose? Because sometimes guys don't like to come on after they come up with the L.
That's a great question, and he lost. So yeah. I mean, that could narrow it down. But
I like Vaughn. I think Vaughn's going to come on. I think Vaughn.
We're hoping to have Vaughn on.
Yes, come on, Vaughn. He'll come through. Yeah. Vaughn will come through.
But you know what? Like Vaughn's the type of guy that he's not going to hide after a while. So, I mean, I'm not saying he would, but you never know. But we were hoping to have Vaughn on this week, and then we've got some more fun lined up late in the week with Stanford Steve, as usual, on Friday and that sort of thing. So.
Fantastic. And then you chopped it up with your brother after week 3. So everybody should check that out. Green Light Pod with Chris Long right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Check out the pod. Go hit the RSS feed. Go hit the follow and all of that good stuff at Joel91 on Twitter and La Flama Blanca on Instagram.
Yeah. That's it. IG shout out, Rich.
That's it, man. That's it. I cover all the bases best I can.
Check out my reels, guys. I got a TikTok too, I think.
By the way, we need to make a T-shirt out of that. Check out my reels, guys. Check that out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for the call, Chris Long. You're the best.
Rich,
thank you, sir.
Good talking to you. See you, buddy.
Two-time Super Bowl champ, Chris Long. Check out the Green Light podcast right here on Mondays on The Rich Eisen Show.